Hi guys, welcome back, and today we're going to talk about shoe rules, as in literally the rules that you have when you are wearing your shoes. So this is very much a conditioned response to how we wear our shoes and how we expect other people to fall in line as well. So one of the rule types is my rules for me and my rules for you. These kind of guys tend to make really good managers. They have my shoe type works for me. I have the same rules, or I have strong rules that govern my way that I behave in my shoes and how I operate every single day. But I've also got my rules for you. So if I were a boss or a manager, I go, here are the rules, and this is what you got to do, and this is how you've got to do it, and you've got to stick to those rules, or ding ding ding, there will be some kind of consequence. Okay, so it's not just in work environment, but you will find that they will govern themselves like this in a social environment as well, and even in a familial environment. So it'll be, you know, my family, we have to do this, and we have to eat at this time, and you know, I expect them to do the washing and the cleaning and whatever it is. So there's set rules, set boundaries that work for both the individual that's wearing the shoes and their expectation of how they are going, others are to fall in line with those rules. So quite often, if there's any kind of friction or backlash with that, it's often because the rules have been broken, but sometimes it's because they are not very well communicated. So when we communicate, we can say, please, you know, turn it into a request, is my suggestion is, you know, I've noticed that you don't do ding ding ding. My request is that you do ding ding ding, fill in the gap. Okay, so changing it to where they are more likely to receive it, to take it on board, and to actually embrace that change rather than having it enforced on them. Then you have the people who have no rules for me, my rules for you. So I've got no shoes on, but I've got lots of rules for you. Okay, these are often the rule breakers in my world. They often have you know, a lot of, dare I say, restrictive rules that are imposed on others, but of course they don't apply to them. It's got nothing to do with me. I'm excluded from this, you know, and therefore I don't need, you know, rules are there to be broken, because I don't have rules. I am a free individual, and nobody can contain me. So I do find that unhealthy politicians sometimes display this as a characteristic, but there's also the same in corporates. I've seen that as well. But you know, you do have to sort of look for it. It's not typically something that a lot of people seem to know about, but it is, you know, people just go, well, what's the deal with that? Why do we have to do that and they get away with it? How come they don't have to have, you know, X, Y, and Z happen to them if they, you know, behave in the same certain way? So it's not, you know, it's not uncommon in the unhealthy politician who's way out of whack, where they've had you know, obviously a lot of probably childhood trauma or expectations or socializations where they're not allowed to be seen or behave in a certain way, but because they are superior to everybody else, they are given license to behave poorly in their eyes. Let's get that clear. So it's not just politicians, don't get me, you know, and I'm not saying that all politicians are like this, by the way. I'm just letting you know, I'm taking cases like where they're extreme, like, you know, I grew up with Mugabe in Zimbabwe, and he really did do that. You know, he was, you know, no rules for me, I'll do whatever the heck I want. I'll give you an example that really always used to blow my mind. He put it under the, you know, to keep it safe, to keep him safe. He had something called, what we called Bob Marley and the Wailers. So whenever he left his property, he would have a cavalcade of army and police cars running in front of him. So he'd have bikes, he would have an army vehicle in front of him. He would also have police cars in front of him with and in the back. His whole limo was bomb-proofed, and, you know, bulletproof glass. And they would put these sirens on, and as they were driving through town or wherever it was that they were actually going, if you heard the siren, you had to pull over onto the side of the road in order to let the cavalcade go past. Now, all well and good if you happen to hear it. So they would go through red lights and they would drive really fast. They always broke the limit. There was never slow driving anywhere. How he actually got to where he got without being killed is beyond me anyway, because he really did go really fast. And he just had his own rules. Like, he went through the red lights. Everybody else had to part ways for him to actually go through. And it was just interesting, you know, like, and it was to the peril if you didn't. Like, there was one lady who actually passed, she lost her baby because they opened fire on her, and she didn't hear, she must have had her radio or something on, I think they said, and she didn't hear the sirens going off, and they opened fire and the bullets went through the car door and unfortunately killed her baby. She survived. But it wasn't uncommon to hear those kind of things. But there was no repercussions for that. That was just like, well, you know, the deal is that I'm coming through, so everybody must just part ways. So there was a full-blown ego going on there, right? Anyway, so that's a classic of, you know, no rules for me, my rules for you, and quite often really unpleasant rules in his case. But it does vary, you know, it depends on the individual. I mean, you've got to take it how it is, but just being aware of it is a start, isn't it? This is what this process is all about. Then you've got the people where it's, you know, my rules and your rules, okay? Now, my rules are, you know, I've got very high standards, or I've got my own set of rules that I have to live by. And then you've got yours to live by. And it's like, whatever you want to do and however you want to wear your shoes and govern your life, that's up to you. I've got my shoes and my standards and how I want to govern my life. That's my bag, that's my responsibility, and I don't expect anybody else to come in and try and change that. I don't really care if they throw it at me. I'll probably rebuke it because it's got nothing to do with them. I respect somebody else's decisions with the your shoes. You do what works for you and I'll do what works for me, and then everybody's going to be happy. So you know, they sound a lot more balanced. However, sometimes you do need a little bit more of the general loose guidelines of, you know, societal norms and rules and guides, so that there's no rule breaking. So as long as it's your rules for you are a healthy way of wearing your shoes as opposed to a non-healthy way. So being aware of that is something quite key. And then the last thing that I would say is the no rules. There's no rules at all. Like no, you know, like I've got no rules and you've got no rules. Well, that's just chaos. Because nobody's got any boundaries and nobody knows what's supposed to be going on, and it can be quite challenging for that person to sort of operate in the real world, because, you know, constantly people are imposing stuff on them and they just don't get it, and it's just like, I don't want any rules, I don't need any of this stuff in my life. You know, it's not even that I have expectations of you do what you want to do. It's just like there shouldn't be any. There just shouldn't be any restriction whatsoever, and I don't understand that. And of course, in society there are tacit and overt rules. You know, that we just by nature do actually have, whether they are consciously implemented or, you know, they've just slid into that kind of environment with no rules, then that's it. So it's like, game on, do whatever you want whenever you like, and it can result in quite a bit of chaos. So you do need some kind of element of control, or retraining into, well, how can we introduce something that you would be comfortable with. And again, it's changing the way that you word things depending on how those other people are. So here's my little exercise that I have for you today. Not big. What do you think you are? If you wouldn't mind sharing in the channel here or going across to the Facebook page, that would be marvelous. And if you think this is helpful at all, please do share with somebody else. If you've often wondered why you clash with someone and you go, you know, I've got my rules and they're just not sticking to them. Well, it's quite possible that they're one of these other categories. So maybe have a little look, you know, like what shoes are they wearing that it's clearly different to mine. Otherwise, I wouldn't be feeling this friction. If you're feeling the friction, it means that they're wearing different shoes. They could possibly be on a different path. Is there any commonality? Is there not? And if there is, fantastic. If there isn't, can I live with it? Is it okay? Or how do I deal with it if I've decided I'm just going to have to suck it up and deal with it? So this is all that wonderful, useful information that will help you and encourage you to grow as a person, to understand who you are, what your shoes are on your path, get you walking on the road that you want to be walking on with a whole group of wonderful, like-minded people just like you. Okay, I hope you found that useful. Thank you so much for making time again for me today. I will look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you so much. Namaste.